The garage light flickered overhead as I tightened the last bolt on my pickup's transmission. Grease covered my knuckles, and the concrete floor was cold against my knees. 23 years as a mechanic, and I still found peace under the hood of a broken-down truck. Too bad I couldn't fix my marriage the same way. My phone buzzed against the workbench. A text from Linda, my wife of 18 years. Sold your ring. Flying to Cancun with Brent tomorrow. He's so much more fun than you ever were. I stared at the screen, oil-stained thumb hovering over the keyboard. 18 years of marriage, reduced to a text message sent while I was fixing the truck that would get her to work tomorrow morning. The ring she sold? My grandfather's wedding band that I'd given her on our 10th anniversary. I typed back, "Great." Then I opened our banking app and froze her debit card. Let's see how fun Brent is when he's picking up the entire Cancun tab. My phone started ringing 30 seconds later. Linda's panicked voice crackled through the speaker. "What did you do?" "My card isn't working." "Funny how that happens when you steal someone's inheritance and run off with your ex-boyfriend," I said, wiping my hands on an old rag. "Have a great trip, Linda." Hope Brent's got deep pockets. "You can't just—" I hung up and turned off the phone. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. The thing about being married to someone for 18 years is that you learn their patterns. Linda thought she was clever, but I'd seen the signs for months. The late nights at her real estate office, the new clothes, the way she'd started working out again after a decade of calling my gym membership a waste of money. Most telling of all, she'd stopped complaining about our modest house on Maple Street. When Linda stopped complaining, that meant she'd found her exit strategy. I'd met Brent Morrison exactly once, at our daughter Emma's high school graduation party. He was Linda's college boyfriend, the one who dumped her senior year for some sorority girl. Now he was back in town, running a CrossFit gym and driving a red Mustang that screamed midlife crisis. The guy was 42 years old and still wore backward baseball caps. Emma, our 17-year-old daughter, had been giving me the cold shoulder for weeks. I'd assumed it was typical teenage drama, but now I wondered what Linda had been telling her, probably painting me as the villain in whatever story she'd constructed to justify this mess. Our house felt different when I walked inside. Linda's absence was obvious. No reality TV blaring from the living room. No expensive candles burning in every room. No complaints about my work clothes or the smell of motor oil. For the first time in months, the house was quiet. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together, where we'd helped Emma with homework, where we'd planned our future back when we still believed in one. My phone buzzed with another text from Linda. "This is insane. You can't leave me stranded here." I could, actually, and I was going to. Linda returned 3 days later, furious and humiliated. Apparently, Brent's credit cards were maxed out, and she'd had to call her sister for rescue money. She stormed into our house like a hurricane, slamming doors and shouting about how I'd embarrassed her. "You made me look like a fool in front of everyone," she screamed, throwing her suitcase down in our bedroom. "I made you look like a fool?" I was sitting on the couch, still in my work clothes. "Linda, you texted me about selling my grandfather's ring while I was fixing your car. You don't get to play victim here. That ring was just sitting in a drawer. That ring was the last thing I had of him." She rolled her eyes. "Always so dramatic, Jack. This is exactly why I need something more in my life." "Something more like Brent Morrison?" Her face went red. "At least Brent has ambition. At least he's going somewhere with his life." "Where's he going? Back to 1995? Emma walked in during our argument, home from her summer job at the mall. She looked between us with disgust, but all her anger was directed at me. "Dad, why are you being such a jerk to Mom? Ask your mother what she did with my grandfather's ring." "God, Dad, it's just jewelry. Mom deserves to be happy, just jewelry." 18 years old, and she already sounded exactly like her mother. Linda had been busy during her 3-day absence. Within a week, half the town knew her version of events. I was controlling, abusive, and had financially abandoned her in Mexico. She'd always been good at managing narratives. It's what made her successful in real estate. But this time she was selling a story about our marriage, and I was the villain. My boss, Pete Kowalski, pulled me aside at the garage on Friday afternoon. "Jack, I don't usually get involved in personal stuff, but people are talking." "What kind of talking?" "The kind where customers ask if you're safe to have around their cars." "Look, I've known you for 15 years, you're solid. But Linda's telling people some pretty serious stuff." "Like what?" "Like you threatened her, like you've been hiding money, like you might be dangerous." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Pete, you know me." "I do. But customers don't. Maybe take a few days off. Let things cool down." That evening, I drove to Murphy's Tavern, the dive bar where I'd been drinking beer and watching games for 20 years. The moment I walked in, conversation stopped. My usual stool at the bar was empty, but so were the stools on either side of it. Danny Murphy, who'd owned the place since before I was born, gave me a sympathetic nod, but didn't come over to chat like he usually did. I ordered a beer and sat alone, listening to whispered conversations about my marriage. Heard he cleaned out their bank accounts. Linda's scared to go home. Always seemed like a quiet type, but you never know. I finished my beer and left. Outside, I ran into Sam Rodriguez, my old friend from high school. We'd been close once, but life had pulled us in different directions. He worked construction now, had 3 kids, and coached Little League on weekends. "Jack," he said, clearly uncomfortable. "How are you holding up?" "Been better." "You?" "Listen, man, I don't know what's going on with you and Linda, but maybe you should talk to someone. Get some help." "Help with what?" "You know. Anger management. Whatever's going on in your head." "Sam, did Linda tell you I was dangerous?" He shifted his weight, avoiding my eyes. "She's scared, Jack. Really scared. And Emma's worried about her mom. I never touched Linda, not once. Not ever. I'm just saying, maybe some counseling." "I don't need counseling. I need people to stop believing lies." But Sam was already backing away. "Take care of yourself, Jack." I watched him walk to his truck and drive away. Another friendship casualized by Linda's campaign. The rumors got worse. Linda was strategic about it, never saying anything directly actionable, just planting seeds of doubt wherever she went. At the grocery store, she'd mention how she was walking on eggshells at home. At Emma's school events, she'd talk about feeling unsafe and not knowing what Jack might do next. Emma started staying at her friend Sarah's house most nights. When she did come home, she treated me like a stranger. One evening, I tried to talk to her about college applications, something we'd been working on together all summer. "I don't need your help," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Emma, we've been planning this for months. Mom says you might not even pay for college now that you're being so weird about money." "I'm not being weird about money. I froze 1 credit card after your mother stole from me." "She didn't steal anything." "God, Dad, listen to yourself." "She sold my grandfather's ring without asking." Emma finally looked at me, and I saw Linda's expression on her face, that mixture of pity and contempt I'd been seeing more and more often. "Maybe she sold it because she needed to get away from you." That night, I sat in my garage workshop, trying to make sense of how everything had fallen apart so quickly. I'd been married to Linda for 18 years. We'd built a life together. We'd raised a daughter together. How had I become the villain in my own story? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your wife's Facebook page." I didn't have Facebook, never saw the point, but I could access Linda's account from our shared computer. She'd posted a long emotional status about surviving an abusive marriage and finding the courage to leave. The post had dozens of comments from friends and acquaintances, all offering support and sharing their own stories about dangerous men and red flags. The worst part wasn't the lies she was telling. The worst part was how believable they were. Linda was good at this. She'd taken every argument we'd ever had, every moment of frustration or anger, and reframed it as evidence of abuse. The time I'd raised my voice during a fight about money became screaming and intimidation. The time I'd slammed a door became violent outbursts. I scrolled through the comments, recognizing names of people I'd known for years. People who now thought I was a monster. But then I found something interesting. A comment from Trish Brennan, Linda's best friend and colleague at the real estate office. "I've been worried about you for months. I'm so glad you're finally free." Months. Linda had been planning this for months, and Trish had been helping her. I started digging deeper into Linda's social media, looking at old posts and photos. What I found was a timeline of deception going back almost a year. Photos with Brent at work events that I'd never heard about. Check-ins at restaurants and bars during times when she'd told me she was showing houses. Comments from Trish encouraging her to do what makes you happy and you deserve better. This wasn't a spontaneous affair. This was a coordinated campaign to destroy my reputation while building Linda's exit strategy. The anonymous text sender struck again. "Meet me at Murphy's tomorrow night, 9 p.m. I have information you need." Murphy's was nearly empty when I arrived at 9. Just a few regulars nursing beers and watching a baseball game on the ancient TV above the bar. I ordered a whiskey and waited. At 9:15, Trish Brennan walked in. I should have been surprised, but somehow I wasn't. Trish had always been Linda's closest friend, the one who encouraged her worst impulses and fed her dissatisfaction with our marriage. She was divorced, bitter, and had always resented what she saw as Linda's settling for a blue-collar husband. "Hello, Jack." She slid onto the stool next to mine, ordering a wine that Murphy's definitely didn't have. "You're my anonymous texter." "Guilty." She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "I thought it was time we had a conversation." "About what?" "About Linda. About Brent. About the story everyone's been hearing." "Your story, you mean?" Trish laughed. "Oh, Jack. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about Linda's affair. This isn't even about your marriage. Then what's it about?" "It's about you ruining my life 3 years ago." I stared at her, genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" "The Morrison account. Remember? The big commercial development deal that would have made my career?" Slowly, it came back to me. 3 years ago, Linda had come home excited about a potential client, a developer named Morrison who wanted to build a shopping complex outside town. She'd asked me to look at some paperwork, since I knew about construction and permits. I'd noticed some problems with the environmental impact study and told her to be careful. "You told Linda not to take the deal," Trish continued. "She listened to you instead of me. That account went to another agency and I lost the biggest commission of my career. Trish, that deal fell through anyway. The EPA shut it down. But I didn't know that then. All I knew was that Linda chose her mechanic husband's advice over her business partner's expertise. So you decided to destroy my marriage?" "I decided to give Linda what she really wanted." She was already unhappy, Jack. She was already looking for a way out. I just helped her find it. By reconnecting her with Brent. By showing her that she deserved better than a man who held her back. Brent was easy to manipulate. He never got over losing Linda in college. A few conversations about how unhappy she was, a few accidental meetings at the gym, and nature took its course. I felt sick. "You orchestrated all of this." "I orchestrated Linda's freedom. The abuse narrative was her idea, though. I have to give her credit for that. It's been very effective." "Why are you telling me this?" Trish finished her wine and stood up. "Because it's over now. Linda's filed for divorce. She'll get the house, half your retirement, and probably alimony. Emma will choose to live with her, of course, and you'll be the crazy ex-husband who terrorized his family. People will see through this eventually. Will they? Look around, Jack. This whole town thinks you're dangerous. Your own daughter is afraid of you. Even your friends cross the street to avoid you. She was right. In the space of 2 weeks, I'd lost everything. My wife, my daughter, my reputation, even my job. All because of a woman's 3-year-old grudge over a business deal. You won't get away with this, I said. Trish smiled. I already have. After she left, I sat at the bar for another hour, thinking. Danny Murphy eventually came over and sat down across from me. Rough couple of weeks, he said. Getting worse. You want some advice from an old man? I nodded. Sometimes when people paint you as the villain, the best thing you can do is give them what they expect. I spent the weekend planning. If Linda and Trish wanted a villain, I'd give them one. But I'd do it smart, and I'd do it legal. Monday morning, I called my lawyer, Uncle Pete. Not actually my uncle, but he'd been handling legal work for my family since I was a kid. Pete was old school, the kind of lawyer who'd rather settle things over a handshake than drag them through court. Jack, I heard about the divorce filing. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry yet, Pete. I need you to help me with something. I told him everything. The affair, the lies, Trish's confession, the whole conspiracy. Pete listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. Well, he said when I finished, this is a hell of a mess. But it's not hopeless. What can we do? Legally? We can fight the divorce terms, demand a fair split of assets, and push for joint custody of Emma. But Jack, that's not really what you want, is it? What do you think I want? I think you want everyone to know the truth. I think you want Linda and Trish to face consequences for what they've done. And I think you want to do it in a way that makes them look as foolish as they've made you look. Is that legal? Pete grinned. Son, everything I'm about to suggest is perfectly legal. It might not be particularly nice, but it's legal. The first step was financial. Linda had been living off our joint accounts for months, funding her affair and her new lifestyle. But she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd been using our joint credit card for everything, including hotel rooms with Brent. We can freeze all joint accounts pending the divorce proceedings, Pete explained. She'll have to prove her expenses were legitimate marital expenses. Good luck explaining those hotel charges. What about the house? She can stay there, but she'll have to pay the mortgage herself. Hope her real estate commissions are good this month. The second step was social. I started documenting everything. Linda's lies, Trish's manipulation, the timeline of the affair. I wasn't going to post it on Facebook or make a scene at Murphy's. I was going to wait for the right moment to reveal everything at once. You need leverage, Pete said. Something that makes them want to settle quietly instead of dragging this through court. That's when I remembered Linda's little tax problem. For the past 2 years, Linda had been underreporting her real estate commissions, claiming that some of her sales were gifts from grateful clients rather than taxable income. It wasn't technically illegal, but it was definitely against IRS regulations. I'd told her to stop, but she'd laughed it off. The IRS takes a dim view of unreported income, Pete said when I told him, especially when someone's claiming to be a victim while hiding money from the government. Is that enough? It's a start. But Jack, if you really want to destroy them, you need to be patient. Let them think they've won. Let them get comfortable. Then hit them when they least expect it. So I waited. I played the part of the defeated husband, the broken man who'd lost everything. I let Linda move Brent into our house. I let Emma treat me like a stranger. I let the whole town think I was the villain, but I was gathering ammunition. The opportunity came 3 months later at the annual Harvest Festival. The whole town would be there, including Linda, Brent, Trish, and Emma. Linda was even scheduled to speak as part of a panel on women in business. A cruel irony, considering how she'd built her success on lies and tax evasion. I'd spent those 3 months carefully documenting everything. Bank records showing Linda's unreported income. Hotel receipts proving the timeline of her affair. text messages between Linda and Trish discussing their plan to get rid of Jack. Even a recording of my conversation with Trish at Murphy's, perfectly legal in our state as long as one party consents to the recording. Pete had helped me compile everything into a comprehensive dossier. We'd also quietly reported Linda's tax issues to the IRS and provided them with documentation. The investigation was already underway. "You sure you want to do this?" Pete asked the morning of the festival. "Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back." "I'm sure. It's going to get ugly. It's already ugly. At least this way, everyone will know the truth." The Harvest Festival was held in Riverside Park, the same place where Linda and I had brought Emma when she was little, the same place where we'd celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary. Now it would be the place where I destroyed my wife's life. Linda's panel was scheduled for 2 p.m., right after lunch when the crowd would be at its biggest. I positioned myself near the stage, close enough to be heard but far enough away to avoid immediate confrontation. Linda looked confident as she took the microphone, talking about overcoming adversity and finding strength in difficult times. She was wearing a new dress, probably bought with money from my grandfather's ring, and Brent was sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. When the panel opened for questions, I raised my hand. "Linda, you've talked a lot about overcoming adversity. Can you tell us about overcoming the adversity of committing tax fraud?" The crowd went quiet. Linda's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the $47,000 in unreported income over the past 2 years. I'm talking about the hotel receipts you claimed as business expenses when you were actually using them to cheat on your husband. I'm talking about the IRS investigation that's already underway. Linda looked around desperately, seeking support from the crowd, but people were pulling out their phones, recording everything. "Jack, you're making a scene," she said, trying to regain control. "I'm telling the truth. Something you should try sometime." I pulled out a folder of documents, copies of everything I'd given to the IRS and my lawyer. Bank records showing unreported income, hotel receipts with Brent's name on them, text messages between you and Trish planning this whole thing. Even a recording of Trish admitting that she orchestrated your affair as revenge against me. Trish, who was sitting with the other real estate agents, stood up and started to leave. But I wasn't done. "Don't go yet, Trish. Tell everyone about the Morrison account. Tell them how you've been planning this for 3 years because I cost you a commission." The crowd was buzzing now, people turning to look at Trish, who was frozen halfway to the parking lot. Brent stood up, his face red with anger. "You're crazy, man. Everyone knows you're crazy." "Am I? Then explain these hotel receipts from last year, 6 months before Linda claims our marriage fell apart. Explain the text messages where you and Linda laugh about how stupid I am. Explain the photos of you two together at restaurants while she was telling me she was working late." Brent took a step toward me, but I was ready. I'd been working out at the gym every day for 3 months, channeling my anger into physical strength. "Go ahead, Brent. Hit me. Give everyone here a show. Prove that you're the kind of man who solves problems with violence." He stopped, realizing that attacking me in front of half the town would only make things worse. Linda tried one last desperate play. "Jack has been abusing me for years. He's dangerous. This is exactly the kind of behavior—" "Is it?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Trish's confession. Her voice was clear and unmistakable. "This isn't about Linda's affair. It's about you ruining my life 3 years ago." The crowd heard everything, Trish admitting to orchestrating the affair, Linda creating the abuse narrative, the 3-year plan for revenge. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Emma was staring at me from the crowd, tears in her eyes. For the first time in months, she looked like my daughter instead of Linda's weapon. "Dad?" she said, her voice small and confused. "I'm sorry you had to hear it this way, Emma. But I needed everyone to know the truth." Linda was crying now, her carefully constructed image crumbling in front of everyone she knew. Trish had made it to her car and was driving away as fast as she could. Brent was looking around desperately, realizing that his association with this mess had just destroyed his reputation too. "The IRS will be in touch about the tax evasion," I said to Linda. "And Trish should probably find a new job. I doubt her real estate license will survive an ethics investigation." I folded up my documents and started to walk away. The crowd parted in front of me, but this time it wasn't out of fear. It was out of respect. "Jack," someone called out. It was Sam Rodriguez, the friend who'd abandoned me months earlier. "I owe you an apology." "We all do," said Danny Murphy. I nodded and kept walking. I'd said what I needed to say. I'd revealed the truth. I'd destroyed the people who'd tried to destroy me. They'd wanted a villain. I'd given them one. But in the end, I wasn't the villain of this story. I was the hero.